As a federal contractor, staying on top of today's requirements for affirmative action can be challenging. And putting together an affirmative action plan that includes statistical reports and narrative documentation can be time consuming. What I'm going to show you today is AA Planner. And I'm going to go through a short demonstration of how to use AA Planner to create an affirmative action plan. So when you enter into AA Planner, the first thing that you're going to see is a landing page that includes links to a lot of information. That includes the AA Planner training guide, different videos, as well as news feeds. And as you see here, all of the steps are arranged in sequence. So to create your affirmative action plan, you just simply have to follow each step until you get to the end, which is the reports generation step. So let's start with the first step, which is the plan definition. So under the plan definition, you are essentially going to define your plan. So if you have one plan or 10 plans, this is where you're going to define each one of those plans. So you can name each plan whatever makes most sense for your organization. And you can see here that I have a plan for 2018. And there are also some advanced features that you can tap into to set up your plan. So we've included the capability to add as many additional variables to accommodate your data as necessary. Also, when you are setting up your labor areas, you can select any labor area that's been defined in the 2010 residential census data, in addition to industry-specific data. So for those of you that want to use industry-specific data, you can certainly do that as well. If you want to create census code aggregations, you can create census code aggregations as well as census aggregations. So if you want to combine areas to create a custom area, you can certainly do that as well. And some additional features that we've included are the auto labor feature. So if you want to assign a labor area very quickly to all of your job groups, you can do that very quickly through the auto labor section. You can use up to 4 additional factors. Those factors can be either internal or external factors, so those are above and beyond the required internal and external factor, or the 2 factors that you are required to use. And then for establishing your goals, you can select any number of different tests that are included in AA Planner, to include the any difference rule, greater than one whole person, the 80% rule, the exact binomial rule, and then the 2 standard deviation test. And there is also the capability to shift to an alternate test if you want to use an alternate test on smaller job groups. And so you can use these tests to determine underutilization for females and minorities and disabled and veterans. Now once you have all of those parameters established, you can start importing data, and that's the next step in the process. So you can import your data directly from a CSV file that you would save in Excel, for example. And you can import that information directly into the application. And so you would just simply click on import and find the file that you want to import. Once you have imported that data, AA Planner is going to go through a series of validation checks, and it's going to give you the results of that validation step. So if there are any issues with the data, it's going to point those issues out for you so that you can correct those issues. But if you still want to continue with the preparation of the plan, you can do so. AA Planner is not going to stop you. It's simply going to let you know or alert you that there are some issues with the data. So you can continue on to the next step. So the next step might be to review the job table if you have decided to use the job table feature. So this is something that is very useful to organizations that may have data that is not as clean as they would like. And so this job table feature gives you the capability to override certain information as it's coming into the application. So if you know that you have issues with a job title being assigned to multiple job groups, this is a way that you can easily correct that as you're importing the data. Now, I'm going to fast forward through some of these steps. The next step that I'll talk about is the employee data. This is where you can make any changes to the employee data that you wish. So if there is a code or some variable in a particular record that you want to change, you can certainly make those changes in the employee editor. There is also a labor editor where you can make your labor area assignments. So you can see here that we can select any number of different areas and assign weights to those different areas. Similarly with our feeder job groups, to create our internal factor, we can use any number of feeder job groups or feeder job titles to create that internal availability. And then once we've set up the internal and external factors, we can then determine how much weight we're going to place on each of those factors, and this is where the weights editor comes into play. So you can see here that I've assigned weight to the external factor, assigned weight to the internal factor, and also there's an additional third factor that I've enabled. And remember that we can enable up to 4 additional factors for a total of 6 factors. So as I get close to finishing my plan, one of the last steps that I'll take is to create my narrative to go along with the statistical reports that I've done all the work to create up to this point. So when I click on the narrative section, this is where I can make changes or updates to the narrative itself. So changes to the cover page. If this is an existing plan from the previous year, I can enter in my previous year's goals. I can also use my own narrative. So if you have a narrative that you have created and would like to use it in AA Planner, you can make it a template and import it into the application and use it as one of your templates. Now, AA Planner does come with a default template that you can use that includes all of the required components of the narrative for females, minorities, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. So at this point, I have completed my plan. Now, periodically throughout the year, I'll want to come back and check my progress, and then also create my impact ratio analysis reporting. And this is where these next 2 areas are going to come into play. So the goal attainment section helps me to measure my progress periodically throughout the year. And then the impact ratio analysis section is going to allow me to create those adverse impact analyses for hires, promotions, and terminations periodically throughout the year as well. So that once I have all of those areas completed, I can go then to the reports section and then start creating these different reports.